Crafty friends, it's Jess from jesscrafts.com, and today I'm here for Tuesdays with Tupelo, where I share some projects made with supplies found from Tupelo Designs LLC. And I'm going to be working with some color burst and some MFT dynamics today, because the upcoming challenge for the Tupelo Designs LLC Facebook group is to use MFT dynamics in your project in order for a chance to win a gift certificate. And I'm also combining this with the current challenge at Tupelo Designs to make a birthday card for their CEO and mascot of the company, Tupelo. So you'll see that I turn one of these cards into a birthday card for that purpose. So be sure to check the video description for some links to the Facebook groups to find out more about these two contests and enter for your chance to win. So for today's backgrounds, I just wanted to do something fun and playful, and that's kind of the name of the game with Color Burst, is that they're unpredictable, but they create some really fun, interesting backgrounds. And with Color Burst, you can activate them with water, or you can apply them to a wet surface to activate them. And that gives you slightly different looks. So if you were to shake some powder on and then spray, or take a paintbrush, it would give a different look than if you were to wet the surface. So I started by just trying to wet the surface and see how the color burst reacted. I found that it didn't quite spread as much as I wanted, since I wanted to fill the whole sky. And since I'm making two cards, I'm kind of trying to learn from the experiences of the first card to help me with the second card. But I do like the sort of natural way that it wicks about when the cardstock is already wet. Since it wasn't spreading as much as I wanted, though, I decided to take a spray bottle to it. I have this Tim Holtz spray bottle, and I think that it's unique and definitely worth it to get this one instead of just any old spray bottle, because it really gives gives a variety of sprays. It gives that little bit of drippy spray that you sometimes want for effects. It gives a really wide, misty sort of spray, and it can give a more concentrated spray as well. And so to have all those options is important, and it's a quite large bottle, so I don't find myself refilling it as often. After I got a base layer down and I really kind of covered the whole area, I decided to go back in and try to get more of the interesting layers that Color Burst provided. So I like that shaked on look. However, I needed to cover the surface first. So I spread the paint around with a paintbrush, then I re-wet the surface and just sprinkled some on to create more of those interesting sort of drips and drops. I'm basically going for a sunrise and a nighttime scene. And so this is more of my sunrise or sunset, I suppose, theme. And I'll further incorporate that later in with some stencils. But I also wanted to add some shimmer to this, because it will move the color burst along a little bit more as the color burst stays reactive with water. And so when you apply a shimmer spray, that will allow a little bit more reactivity and also give me a chance to sprinkle on even a little bit more color burst and see how it reacts. Basically, when I'm playing with color burst, I kind of just let things go as they are. So you see there's now these little drips in there. And that's from where I shook on just a little bit more when it was wet with the glitter spray. And that allowed for small drops because the paper wasn't saturated. Now, to further give this effect of the sunrise, but keep it subtle, I am taking this sunrise stencil from MFT, layering it over the color burst background, and I'm going to use some gel medium from Faber-Castell. This is pretty similar to Mod Podge, and honestly, you might be able to get a similar technique with just thick glue. You might be able to just use paste, like school glue, Elmer's kind of glue. Because I'm not really looking for color here so much as just a little bit of texture through the stencil. So I'm just taking a palette knife and scraping this glue, this gel medium, through the stencil. I'm not going to use it to adhere anything, although gel medium certainly acts as a glue. I just wanted to give a transparent layer. You could also do this with transparent embossing paste if that's what you have, but because I want it to be subtle and I don't want this sunrise stenciled area to really stand out too much, I use this clear medium. Now, I'm going to repeat the same steps in order to create a nighttime scene. I'm just going to use some different colors of color burst, but I wanted to mix some things up that I didn't work out well for me the first time. And so what I learned is that I needed to initially cover my watercolor base with some color. So that way I could allow the color burst to do more of their reactive fun things, but still have an overall coverage. So I just sprinkled some of the color burst onto my craft sheet. And Tupelo Designs now carries craft sheets that are even thicker than the Rangers and a better deal per square foot. And so I sprinkled it onto the craft sheet, added a little bit of water, and then was able to paint it on. Then I saturated my brush with water and made some swirling motions all over the blue background. Making these swirling motions allowed the water to react in a different way because the color burst to react in a different way because the color burst is going to follow the water. So if the water is in a swirl pattern, it will sort of guide the color burst in a different pattern as well. So that's something to keep in mind, that you can kind of manipulate the color burst with where you direct water before adding the color burst. So I found though that with this purple, it gives a much darker color and it's more highly pigmented than I was experiencing with the yellow and the orange. And I didn't want those like really dark blobs of color, especially because when they dry, they have this sort of shine to them and they're that much more reactive with water because it's really like a dried bit of pigment there. And so I'm going to have to lift up some of that. With color bursts, as much as they are fun, they are sort of unpredictable, and so you kind of have to learn each color. And I'm really intrigued by the new colors of color burst. Tupelo Designs LLC is getting in a lot of new things from the CHA show, and so be sure to check out what items are on for pre-order, but also if there are certain items that you're really looking forward to from CHA, it would definitely be helpful to send an email, mention what you're interested in, leave a comment in the Facebook group, that kind of thing, because we want to, of course, provide you with the things that you're interested in and make sure that we're always providing the latest and greatest. So I'm just going to keep manipulating it. Another thing you can see there that I did to take off some color was to use a paper napkin. And so you can pull color away right from the color burst. You do have to activate it with water in order to pull it away. So I just kind of wet those areas that I felt like were too concentrated and pulled the water right up. And again, I'm going to go in with that mist and that glimmer mist and just sort of spray some on and then add a few more sprinkles, since when it is covered in the mist, the color burst doesn't spread as much and leaves more like flicks left over. And then I covered that with a snowflake stencil in the gel medium. And now I'm ready to assemble my card and pull in those MFT dynamics that I showed at the beginning. These are just cut with black cardstock, and they're the city scenes. And I have the New York scene for the sunrise, and then there's the Paris scene for the nighttime sky. However, there's also a London scene available. So kind of depending on what your favorite city is, or just go ahead and get all three. And I also added some balloons that were die cut. There are some MFT Dynamics balloons available, and I just wanted to be able to incorporate the idea of the birthday theme, and so that's why I added the balloons, but I also thought they look kind of fun floating above the city. I'm not going to bother to tie strings onto them because I'm kind of thinking of them as like balloons that escaped. And here you can see as I tilt it where the gel medium has dried and left this really subtle texture. It's nothing too dramatic, but it's there and it's a layer of interest for the person who receives the card. And also when you tilt it in the light, you can kind of see that shimmer that the sprays added as well. Once I finish attaching the balloons, I'm ready to move on to the sentiment. And to keep things simple but allow them to pop, I'm going to be using some white embossing powder in the cityscape area. I'm going to also trim down these panels so that they're more appropriately a card size. Then I will take this white embossing powder. I'll stamp everything in VersaMark ink. When using white embossing powder, you want to be sure you eliminate static with something like an anti-static bag or powder tool in some way, because I do find it a little bit more likely to stick. And I don't have a large container of the white yet. I think that that's something I'll probably make a point to do in the future because I find myself using the white embossing powder more and more. But what you see I could do there is you could take either a piece of scrap paper and funnel the extra white embossing powder back into the jar, or I have a coffee filter which has a similar purpose. I find it a little bit easier than the piece of paper, as things can sort of stick to the paper in different ways, whereas the coffee filter contains the mess, but either way will do. Then I'm going to just mount those onto some card bases. That is it for my cards today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're interested in more crafting tutorials and joining me for Tuesdays with Tupelo Designs LLC, be sure to subscribe to my channel. As mentioned, there are some challenges going on at the Tupelo Designs Facebook groups, and as it is still January, there's still free shipping and a free blending tool available with every order, and a chance to win one of those craft mats that I mentioned earlier. So be sure to check out all the links in the video description below. And thanks for watching. Bye.